What's up, guys? Ivan Carranza here, and welcome to Bass Tone Tuesday. First of all, I would like to wish all of you a happy new year and that we all get to have a better year in 2022 than the previous 2 years. Also, I would like to tell all of you thank you for your support for the channel. This is the first Bass Tone Tuesday of the year, and I'm looking forward to making many more. And I read all of your comments. I try to reply to as many of them as I can, and I appreciate your support. But today we're doing part 3 of the analog versus digital series, and we're talking about why real amps still rule. On the previous video about why digital units and amps are better than regular amps, a lot of you commented and watched it, and there were some pretty interesting comments from both sides of the spectrum. People like raving about digital units, or like really saying that amps are the only way to go, and some were kind of like in the middle, right? And I, first of all, thank you for all the comments, and I agree with some of them. I disagree with some of them. I think a couple of the opinions are situational, depending on what you want to do. But like I mentioned today, we're going to talk about why real amps are awesome. Point number 1 is that real amps are easier to dial in, and it's harder to get a bad sound out of them. And I mean this because with a real amp, even if you set everything flat, completely flat, you're gonna get a pretty decent sound. Sometimes with digital units, no matter what you do, they depend on the brand and the product. Some of them can sound a bit too harsh, and I have been to several shows myself where I've seen that the band is using Kemper, Helixes, Fractals, you name it. And some of the tones were like getting a screwdriver right into your ear, right? They were like really piercing and harsh and annoying to listen to. With a real amp, even with a crappy mic, wherever you place it, you're gonna get a fairly okay sound at least. And if you know what you're doing, you're gonna get a pretty good result that's pleasing to the ears without having to, mess around with too many things. Point number 2 is that adjusting on the fly, and also in general, because you have a limited set of knobs in the front of your faceplate of the amp, is a lot easier than having to go through menus, having to tap here, change settings, go to different menu pages. If you have a fixed set of knobs that you can twist and turn, making changes is a lot faster, especially if you're mid-gig or on sound check and you need to adjust something. You just go there, twist it, you're good to go. You don't need to, like I mentioned, go through a bunch of menus and save settings and make presets and, oh, if I change this one here, I need to adjust it there. It's just one thing, do it, forget it, Quick adjustments, easier to dial in. Point number 3 is related to the previous one in that when you buy an amp, it comes with a limited set of EQ points, knobs, and features. And even though that might sound like a negative because you're limited in some way, actually that forces you to make things work. So you take the time to learn to use the equipment. You learn how to, dial in your amp, and you create and make your own workflow of using that piece of equipment. When you get something digital that comes with, I don't know how many amps, like, 10, 20, 30 amps and pedals and whatnot, it's easy to pull one thing and be like, oh, I don't like that. Go to the next one. Oh, I don't like that. I don't, keep going. Or you get one thing, and because you have so many options, you start throwing in more items in your signal path, and you end up with a chain of things that is ginormous, even though you don't probably need that. You probably could just go with, amp, cabinet, maybe a drive, compression, or something simple, but because you have the availability of throwing things in there, you do it. And sometimes that leads to problems. So having a limited set of options makes you work your creativity and also listen and see how each one of the controls work and learn how to use the equipment, which then translates to being also able to adjust quicker on the fly because you know how the equipment responds and how it sounds like, instead of just guessing and moving knobs randomly because you can. Point number 4 is that with a real amp, and due to that limited set of options, you can create your very own sound, especially when you start thinking about and adding, different cabinet combinations, using your own mics and your own pedals and how you set your amp. And also because even the same model of the same amp might sound a little bit different and might react a little bit different. With plugins or digital units, they all sound the same. So what I have as a digital unit or as a plugin, it's gonna sound the same as what the next guy has and the next guy and the next guy. And that leads to productions or gigs, and everything sounds the same because everyone has the same plugin, the same unit as a digital simulation. Everyone is using the same input responses. Everything sounds the same. But if you have your own physical thing that you, for example, you have a Fender Bassman and you really like how it sounds through a bare-faced cabinet, that's your sound, right? Or you have an Aguilar head and you combine that with a Thunder Clay, 112 or something, and you really dig how it sounds like, that is your signature sound. But if you just rely on pre-made software that everyone can buy, you end up sounding like everyone else. So having analog gear and a limited amount of that, because when you start adding pedals, for example, that cost 100, 200, 300, etc., you only have a limited amount of space on your pedal board unless you want to travel with a ship and a suitcase, right? But that forces you to make choices, and those choices are reflected in your final result. When you have unlimited options through plugins and digital units, like I mentioned, a lot of people end up sounding exactly the same. Point number 5 is that the playing feel and response of the unit is going to be different when you use a real amp, especially if we're talking about tube amps or tube DI boxes like my Noble DI, for example, or my Mesa amp, which has a tube preamp. They feel different than when I play, for example, straight into my interface or straight into my quad cortex. You have a squishier playing response. When you dig in the strings, they have a different reaction time. There's different kind of snap and punch. So that feel is definitely something that is not there most of the time on digital units. Finally, we come to point number 6, and this is probably the most useful feature, at least for me, when using an amp and cabinet live on stage or when recording. And that is that you not only get the oral, the audio feedback of yourself when playing, but you also get the physical feedback. You feel the air being moved, you feel the punch of the notes when you stand right next to a cabinet, and that is extremely helpful when trying to groove because you really feel the length of the notes, you feel the room getting compressed, and when you don't play, you feel how it sounds like and how it feels like to have your bass come in and out of the song, and that is a tremendous feedback, support, and help to make you groove better, because when you realize how everything sounds like without the bass, you also realize how powerful one single note can be, and also how much the duration of your notes affects the whole groove, because you're not only hearing it, you're also feeling it inside your body. You feel that punch, you feel the air, and also it is feedback for your bandmates as well when playing live, because they might also want to feel the bass. I don't know how many times bandmates have told me, hey, please turn up the bass because I want to feel the bass on stage. And of course, I'm more than happy to crank my volume. But you know, it is a great feedback tool for not only yourself, but also the other people in the band. And like I mentioned on the previous point, it does feel different than when you play through a digital unit only. So when you're recording, it is also going to help you to perform a bit better maybe on a studio track. To me, those are the 6 most important points why real amps are better than digital units. But I would like you to let me know down in the comment section what would be your ideal gigging setup. Maybe you want to go full analog with amps and cabinets and pedals, full on digital, maybe a hybrid version. So let me know down in the comments what would be your ideal setup. Let me know the cabinets, the brand, the amps, the pedals. So I'm gonna gather all of those and put as many as I can in the next video, where we're gonna close this series, at least for the time being, and see what people would like to use and why. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and also don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with the content that's coming to the channel. As always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.